Hello and welcome to this, something a little bit different. Um, we've had a question from one of our new members on the YouTube channel, and it's all about the core book for Age of Sigmar. So this is a little bit different. Before we get started, thank you very much to our members and to our patrons, and in particular our VIPs. So the question was, what is the core book and is it worth getting? So I suppose for those that watch the channel normally, they know what Age of Sigmar is. Age of Sigmar is, I suppose, at the moment, Games Workshop's premier fantasy game. It's been around for a good few years now, since the old world was written off. Hopefully, temporarily, we have got the old world is coming as a separate game. But Sigmar, Age of Sigmar, it's currently in its third edition, and it's been growing in scope and complexity since it first started. It started off with just like a couple of pages rule book, and it's gone on to, well, this, and then every army has got its own battle tome and whatnot. So basically what Age of Sigmar is you've got 4 grand alliances. You've got Order, Chaos, Death and Destruction. So Order are out there trying to build civilization. Chaos are trying to do a similar thing, but obviously instead of following Sigmar and his happy benevolent gods, it's the ruinous forces that the mortals and demons follow. Death, they're wanting a bit of order as well, but all under Nagash and pretty much dead, or working for the dead, feeding the dead. You know how it is. And Destruction just want to knock everything down and have a good fight. So every one of the factions in the game falls within one of those grand alliances. You used to be able to take a mixed, say mixed death or mixed destruction as a force, but nowadays it's battle tome specific. Whichever force you choose to align with, if you would, or whichever force you're going to use, you have to play your games on a tabletop. You can see how battle reports. That's some examples of how games go, and you're going to use painted models that come unassembled. It's going to take a bit of time, but we'll come on to that in a minute. It's quite an investment of not only time but cash to get a full-scale tournament-sized army on the table. There are 3 main ways to play Age of Sigmar. There's what's called open play, which is the easiest to do. You just throw the models you've got on the table and you thrash it out, really. There's not much in the way of balance, and it's the best way for I find, for introducing the newest players, and like kids and whatnot. So I played that with my kids when they were really small. Open play. That's a lot like Age of Sigmar was when it first started. But things have moved on, as I say, and I don't think many people play open play anymore. Next is narrative. So I suppose you have story-driven objectives and scenarios. And a lot of the time those can be linked into a campaign, so what happens in one has consequences for future battles. And the last way is matched play, which is like your tournament sized things where the missions are sort of non-asymmetrics, and there's points used to try and achieve balance. There's always going to be some things that are more powerful than others, but matched play, the idea is that it comes down to player skill, and the forces should be equally matched. So the core rules for Age of Sigmar are freely available online. You can either download them from Games Workshop's website, or there's an app, and that also includes all the war scrolls, they're called. So each model or unit will have its own war scrolls with its own things. So what's this? Is it worth getting? That's what they've said. Now, I've heard it said a lot that this is just not worth getting, that it's not worth the investment. It's not totally cheap, although you can pick it up pretty cheap. But I don't agree. I think it's worth getting. So this is what, 360 pages, well put together. It's nice, it's glossy, it's got a ribbon. What more could you want? So this has got like pictures of armies. It's got loads of great artwork just pulling at random pages. It's got all sorts of things. It's got great background overviews of each of the different factions. As I say, it's got the core rules. It's got different things in there as well, sort of like rules for sieges or playing in different places, like subterranean. It's got some match play rules with some battle plans, but where it really shines is the narrative play section. And I think I spoke a second ago about how much of a time investment it is to get Age of Sigmar, to get to where you want to be and to be able to compete at a full scale. I think it's the narrative play section in this book that really, really does that. So whereas the new games, Underworlds or Warcry, can kind of act as a bridge to get into where you want to go. So rather than be faced with a full 2,000 points or whatever to build and paint for your first army, you can now go and buy an Underworlds warband, which might just be 3 models, and you can use that in Underworlds. There are Warcry warbands that you can buy as a box, and you can use that, or you can use just a handful of models from each of the factions. They've all got rules now for Warcry, and that acts as a great bridge to get you into this. And all of those models that you build for those different games are transferable into Age of Sigmar, so they've got their own rules. But also there's Path to Glory, which is one of the key things in this book. So once you've selected your faction and you've painted up your first few models, there's rules in here for taking your general and just a handful of models really, and growing that force. So you'll go through different battles. You'll select quests for your army to go on, and they'll be able to take on different units depending on how much renown they've got, or depending on, you choose a settlement. Like in my last one, I think there's a playlist on the channel. I chose to take Fire Slayers, and I chose to have my settlement on some roads, ancient roads. Now what that meant was that I could take additional allies. You start off with a very basic thing you can take, and you go out exploring and conquering new lands, and you might get, I don't know, wastelands, so you can have an extra monster, or you might have a keep, so you can have extra heroes and whatnot. So you're slowly growing your army, and there's a story, and basically as a group of friends you can grow these armies together, and you have stories, and you're much more invested. And yeah, it just makes that arduous task of building and painting models a little bit more rewarding, because it can be quite intimidating for new players. So I think that's it, the Path to Glory section. Now in each battle tome, I've not got one at hand, it has specific rules for that faction in Path to Glory. So the core rules, as far as I know, this is the only place you can get the core rules for Path to Glory, that shows you how you pick your force, different quests you can go on. It's got different battle plans in here. Now in the different battle tomes, which is where you've got your army specific rules, it might tell you, it'll give you some different terrain that you can take, so that you can conquer, or different things you can build. Like for example, you might have fighting pits with some factions, or you might have haunted caverns or grave sites, or just additional summoning options and things. So without looking at the individual battle tomes, it's difficult to even know, because you'd have to own that and read through that, and you get an extra flavour. All too often we get the battle tomes, we just flick to the match play section, and that's all we do. So in our last one, I chose my force. I had a couple of priests, you can see it on here, I think it's still there, and I had a battlesmith. I'd chosen the ancient roads so that I could get extra allies later, because I wanted to take 2 gun haulers. which are carried on overlords to just give that more mobility basically to my 4-inch movement dwarves. And then I wanted like a magical banner for my battlesmith, but I didn't know what my friends were going to take in their armies, so I didn't want to commit to one straight away. So I thought, well, I'll do that as my first quest. So my first quest was to find an artifact. So what I had to do was to gather a renown over the first couple of battles, and then I could pick a different magical banner based on what people took. So it's really good, and there's just a little bit more fun and joy from actually playing the army competitively when you've got these backstories and you've got these good things that happened. Not everybody has pals about that they can do this with or can commit to. We do like a monthly game or something, but there are gaming clubs everywhere, and Age of Sigmar is a very social hobby. So the tournament scene is pretty social. There's WhatsApp chats and Facebook chats and all these sorts of things that you meet people at events that you can keep in touch with them. Some of my closest friends I've met through going to tournaments. Is it worth getting? I suppose it depends. If you go into tournaments and you basically spend all your time building new armies for the next season, you can probably spend your money somewhere else. If you know what you're going to be building and you're getting through them fast, yeah, go and buy yourself an army box or something instead. But if you're starting out, or if you want to do the narrative play section, if you've got some pals or a regular gaming group, one of you needs this. You definitely. I think that the Path to Glory section for Age of Sigmar 3 is the best thing about it. Enjoy going to the tournaments. It's all fun, don't get me wrong. But there's nothing like developing a story and playing through it. So they're my thoughts. That is a quick 10 or so minutes. Is the co-op worth it? Thanks for watching.